Okay, so thank you, Ruby. And I think this time of COVID-19, we are 20 now, COVID-20.
Yes.
Since Trump apparently didn't know what the 19 was, so we had to let him know. But this is giving us an opportunity to to get together on the web. And so this is really a good occasion and a good experiment. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a bit ambitious, mm-hmm. But we'll try to do our best. And I mean, certainly Ruby is not one that can be accused of lack of initiative.
Too much.
So, okay. So let me then share, I guess I share, right? I share the screen. And here we go. Okay, so share.
All right. Oh, now we're seeing your Google.
No, that's not good. Okay, try again. The screen sharing, so new share. I have to go on. Maybe this one, right? Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Here you can see you.
Here we go. Now we have to take this out of here. Okay, and we go to, yeah, but, presentation. Okay, that's good. Fine. So we all know where we are. This is the webinar. I'll have to take this a bit further out, maybe closer. Okay. Right. Okay. So we are looking at environment, acquisition and learning environment. Some of the concerns from parents and carers. It's already gone past my thing, right? So let's play. Sorry. Okay. Good. Now we're on. Fine. So what concern, a couple of problems that concern mainly parents bringing up children bilingually. Some theoretical notions like language dominance and transfer, and the puzzling results of transfer studies. And then Ruyin will go on with how to solve this puzzle that we are left with from studies of bilingualism, of transferring bilingualism. Okay, so when we talk about the environment, what do we mean? We mean, of course, the linguistic environment. The common thing all human groups share is communicating through language. That's the one thing that characterizes human societies, human groups of various, any kind of sizes. Okay, we all need to communicate. And this, in fact, is one of the instances. The webinar is a way of communicating now facilitated via the web, which is good. Human in history have, and prehistory have evolved over 7,000 languages all over the world. So that's a lot of languages. Of course, in response to their own needs of communicating about their own environment and their own needs. it is also a fact that most humans use more than one language to communicate with relatives, with neighbors, but also across groups and countries. Okay, so there are then various learning environments that we can think of. I mean, one is certainly the naturalistic environment. That is where, this is where most children actually acquire their language. And they acquire simply from interacting with the speakers of that language in the dominant environment and at home. So the first language acquisition, so the children learning their own language, will learn naturally without instruction. By fairly early in the piece, they are already native speakers, maybe by the time they're 5, 6, even though they have not got everything of the language, but they will already be native speakers. They got enough input at that time for what they need as children. So the language will continue to develop following their own cognitive development as well. Now, also second languages can learn that way. So an adult migrating to another country is able to learn another language. So this seems to be another human capacity, okay? We all seem to share that capacity to learn a language other than the language we learn as first language, as mother tongue, when we are little children. Okay, so also as adults, we can do that. Children also can start learning a second language as children, as we will see later on. So the naturalistic environment learning is contrasted to second language or instructed learning. Now, if you learn the language only through instruction, then the results will quite likely not be the same as those who learn through the naturalistic environment, especially as children. Okay, so that's one thing that differentiates learning from learning or acquiring the language from birth and acquiring the language from later on. But still, the result is still bilingual people who will be able to communicate in more than one language. Now, of course, instruction itself can also occur in different kinds of environments. Right? So, for instance, children or school students learning English in Japan or Indonesia will be learning the second language in a country where English is not the dominant language, it's not the environmental language, which we call in our lab, we call it L epsilon.
What?
Okay. L epsilon, LE, which is contrasted to LA and L alpha. LA was the dominant language and L alpha is the weaker language. We will talk a little more about that later. Okay, so you can learn the second language in a foreign environment or in the same environment where the language is spoken as a dominant language, which is the L epsilon, so the language of the environment. Now, in terms of research, most research in childhood bilingualism was based on one parent, one language situation in Western nuclear families. However, the great bulk of contexts are not like that. In many countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and so on, there are the one parent, each parent speaks more than one language. And then there are other, in fact, probably the bulk of situations of bilingualism by migrants. Yeah, you can't say that either, because now there is so many people learning English, for instance, in China, Japan, and so on, that probably the second language will be bigger than the bilingual first language acquisition. But but migration is a very, very large phenomenon. So certainly more so than the one parent, one language situation. So that offers different contexts for research and for learning and for understanding what's going on. In our own Bilingualism Research Lab, we mainly look at context-bound, one environment and one language. So where normally there is one language spoken at home in the domestic environment and another language spoken in the extra domestic environment, so outside. The language of the society, the dominant language of the society is different. Okay. Now, about the concerns people have. Usually, there is always the fear that one language will be weaker than the other language in bilingualism. And the other fear is that maybe the children get confused and they will mix and there is transfer, etc. Okay, so in fact, when people went and studied this phenomena, what do we find? We find that weaker language is in any case a transient or transitory phenomenon, because depending on where you are, which environment you're working in or interacting with people, you end up having a different weaker language, right? So one of the languages become more dominant. So it's not a steady state, right? The situation of dominance will change in time, will change both within individuals and probably also within the groups and within the family. And then in transfer, well, we will see that in fact results are quite mixed. Okay, and one way in which we can look at what happens is by focusing on one specific thing that people have noticed that have observed it as transfer. And in our case, we looked at WH questions, these content questions. Okay, so what are, or how are these content questions distributed across the 7,000 languages? Well, we don't know all 7,000 languages, but somebody, I mean, there is a very nice site that talks about languages in the world. And Dreyer is one of the bigger researchers there. They surveyed 902 languages for this particular issue, just on WH question. And they found three basic patterns all over the world. Now, this is a very nice finding, isn't it? Because it can allow us to look at the specific language structure and find out quite quickly, without having to do a lot of research, quite quickly we can see what the situation is. So according to this atlas of languages, we have three particular ways in which the content question will go. One is that the interrogative phrase, that is the WH, what, when, and so on, will be always compulsorily obligatory in initial position, as it happens in Dutch, English, and French, and various other languages. But those languages are less than 1/3. The majority of languages are actually more like the Asian languages, which are WH in situ languages. So where the content question, what, when, where, and so on, will be exactly in the same position in question as it is in the statement. That's why they're called WH in situ languages. And languages like that are Cantonese, Japanese, Korean, Mandarin, and so on. And then there is a very, very small number of languages, which include Indonesian and I suspect also Malay, which are mixed in the sense that some interrogative phrases are obligatorily initial, but some are not. Okay, so this would be the situation in Malay as well. Okay, now just bear in mind this for 1 minute, because a lot of the research just was concentrating about these issues of the structure without looking at the environment, okay? For instance, Yip and Matthews in Hong Kong, they documented a number of areas which demonstrate cross-linguistic influence in early grammatical development. And what did they find? They found that the direction of transfer, so they observed transfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the direction in which the transfer happened was from dominant Cantonese, because in Hong Kong, the dominant language is Cantonese, toward the weaker English. Okay, the children they looked at had only the father who spoke English at home, but then the mother probably spoke to them Cantonese, and outside there would have been Cantonese and Cantonese English, maybe Hong Kong English. Okay, an example would be something like that is where, okay, where in English in Australia, we would ask, where is daddy? Okay, so the child will learn that.
Yeah.
All right. Other studies Other study also found similar transfer from environmentally dominant toward the weaker language, okay? So that's the direction. But when we talk about transfer, we also have to stress that it is not just the odd thing, right? Not the odd expression, the odd question, but it has to be systemic. So it has to be regular in the use of the child, otherwise it doesn't count as transfer, okay? Right, so other empirical cases where transfer was observed, apart from Yip and Matthews, it was Soriente in Indonesia, who was speaking Italian to the child, to her child. And they were living in Jakarta. And the child learned to ask questions just like that, right? So daddy is where? Of course, in Italian, right? So he would say Italian like that. And then another study was these other guys in France, Trick and Perez-Leroux, which looked at different children from two different age groups. Okay, and in the younger group, they found transfer. In the older group, they didn't. Now, however, lots of other studies didn't find any transfer of WH content questions, right? And among them, we can find the one I just mentioned, but for the older ages. Then Mishina Mori, who studied Japanese English. And then DiBiase and Tani Adams studied English, Japanese again. Park Johnson studied Korean and English. And then, curiously, Yip and Matthews had two of the children they looked at didn't really manifest any systematic transfer. Okay, so because their dominant language, the dominant language of the child was not Cantonese, but it was English already dominant when they were learning Cantonese. Okay, and then we have the
Dr. Bruno, sorry to interrupt you, because I just want to ask just one, because we have a lot of participants who might not be linguists. So when you talk about transfer, it means the use of one particular grammatical feature of one language, for example, English, right, to another language.
Yes.
Right. That's what it means by transfer. So before
so transfer, you transfer one. Well, it's not necessarily a particular structure like a piece of word or something, or just a word, but a pattern. Right?
A pattern,
a structural pattern. So in this case, you have in English from Australia, from England, generally you would say, where is daddy? Okay. Where is daddy?
Okay.
While in the in various Asian languages, you would say, daddy is where?
Yeah. Okay. I think in Malay too, we use both.
Exactly. That's exactly what I suspect. And I suspect that this same thing happens in Hong Kong. And this is the very reason why the children that Yip and Matthew looked at actually did manifest transfer, because it's not really that the language was playing some kind of tricks on the child, right? But the child was simply, or the children, those 4 children were learning Cantonese English, right? And Cantonese English has those patterns. Right?
Okay, so the research that you shared, so mostly they talk about the grammar, right? What about the vocabulary? What do you think? Because sometimes children, especially bilingual children, this is when parents get worried because they use the vocabulary from the other, let's say English to Malay or Malay to English.
Yes, okay, that's not a problem at all, because this sort of vocabulary transfer happens all over the world at any time in history. And at the moment, we have, for instance, lots and lots of transfer words from English to talk about technology, right? So people talk about cookie or www and various other things, which are English. So the parents should stop worrying because that's going to happen at the level of word. It doesn't, of course, I mean, it happens all the time. If you do have both vocabularies, then you will use whichever is most appropriate in the situation. In fact, both adults and children, when they mix, right, when they mix and pick up a word from another language, it is usually because they know that the other person, the interlocutor, the other person knows that word and knows that language. So they will mix. Otherwise, they don't. If they know they're talking to somebody who is who only knows one of their languages, they will only use that language, and they will use it coherently. If they use an English word, it's because everybody else is using the English word. Yeah, I remember when I first arrived in Australia, you know, and so we used to worry about, you know, the what we call Italo-Australian, right?
Okay.
So, because people were using things like fenza for fence and so on in Italian, right? Or floppy, floppettino, little floppy, floppy this for floppy this, right? But then in Italy, they were doing exactly the same. So what were we worrying about? You know, we were worried to stop the onset of English here into Italian, and the Italians were using English all over the place as well for those things. So, the worry is completely unwarranted, both because children will know that if the other person knows the word and the other the same, and so they will only mix and be creative with those people they know will understand them. So we tend to talk, especially in interaction, not like now. Like now I'm talking to you, but you're not talking to me, right? So I try to understand what you might understand or what you might not. So Ruby is very good in asking questions about that, because I don't know what everybody knows. But normally you know that when you talk to somebody, so when a parent speaks to a child, will not talk about philosophy or going to the moon or something like that, unless it is in some kind of poetic language, right? To tell a funny story or whatever. But you know that, so you talk to the child in a way that in a way that you believe the child will understand. And everybody does exactly the same. So we all talk to other people according to what we believe the other people can understand.
Yes, true.
Right. So now if I can say that this last case down here, the particular case that Dr. Nguyen looked at, okay, is one where all the conditions for transfer were actually there. So they should have been transferred, but it didn't happen.
It didn't
happen. There was dominance, so that the dominance was the dominance of the child was Mandarin, right? So the child spoke Mandarin and very little English. English was being learned, okay? So English was the weaker language. And then there was the other factor that is usually looked at is whether they share basic structure, okay?
So you're saying the last, sorry, Dr. Bruno. So you're saying the last, all those cases with no transfer. So the children, they use one language and another language in its appropriate time without code switching.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, usually so. I mean, they code switch only with people they know they can code switch with.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
People that they know they can code switch.
Yeah, that's
I think children have that intuitive sense. Yes. This person don't understand English, so do not speak English.
That's right. Exactly. Like your own child, she wouldn't use English with her dad because
true. A bit condescending, English, yes.
So she will be quite happy to speak Malaysian all the way. So it's not a problem for her. And adults too have got that same sensitivity to understand whether they are allowed in the sense to code switching communication or not, right? Okay, so where transfer has been observed, so these are the factors that are usually looked at. So language dominance, so what is the language dominance of the child, or in other words, which is the weaker language? And then they look at structural factors, like whether there is some similarity between the languages, whether the structure, the more complex ones share some bits, and so on, and the isomorphism, so whether the basic structure of the language is the same, because that seems to have an important consequence. Okay, so but the fact that in some kids was there, in some other was not, then it remains a theoretical puzzle.
True. Right? So, Dr. Bruno, maybe about the language dominance, I think, I mean, if we look at research, language dominance is a field on its own. But here, when we talk about dominance, we are talking about the environmental factors, right? Which language is more used, frequently used in the child's environment?
Well, this is the problem. You see that when in research, when they talk about dominance, they usually talk only about which is the dominant language of the child.
Meaning the child's utterance, right?
Just the child. What is the child's dominant language? Right? They don't look at what is the dominant language of the environment. They only look at what is the dominant language of the child.
Which is very individual then, which is very specific to that particular...
It is very specific. And also, as I said, it changes.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not static. All these things change. So, which would date the study immediately, right? Because it's okay, in that situation, this is what seems to be happening. Okay. Anyway, so the cases of not transfer, because you saw, so the cases of transfer are the ones which are explained, the language dominance, okay, or with structural overlap. So there is some similarity between the languages, okay. And so the cases,
So when you talk about structural overlap, meaning those, let's say in Malay and English, there are some structures that are the same in both languages, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. For instance, like in between Chinese and English, you have subject, verb, object order in most languages. So even though the two languages are really far apart, but the basic structure is the same, because they both share S, so subject, object, subject, verb, object order, right? While the lack of transfer, okay, so the cases of no transfer have been explained by the fact that there is no isomorphism. So where there is no similarity of basic structure, like for instance in Japanese English or Korean English, so where Korean English and Japanese Korean and Japanese have SOV, so subject, object, verb, order, while English has got subject, verb, object. Okay, so the object is after the verb. Okay, and that seems to have an enormous consequence as to whether people can transfer certain things or not. At least this is the belief, right? And in fact, it was supported by the fact that all the studies that looked at Japanese English or Korean English did not show any transfer. There was no observation of transfer. Okay, right. But in Yin's case, you get isomorphism, that is the two languages share SOV. You get dominance, so the child was dominant in Mandarin. Okay, and there is some overlap in structures. So why is there no transfer? Okay, so all the conditions are there, but the transfer was not there. What is the missing piece in this puzzle? Okay.
Okay.
Right. So and now Ruyin will.
Okay.
I'll come off the share. Okay. Stop. So I'll stop the share, and Ruyin will start hers.
Okay.
All
so
right?
okay. Okay, we'll proceed with Dr. Yin.
Have the questions so far? We just go on with Yin.
Participants, if you have questions, you can ask questions.
How can we ask?
I'm uploading.
Yeah.
So you have to unmute yourself, yeah? Because I mute everyone. So now if you want to ask question, you have to unmute yourself. All right.
I try to share, just find the sharing.
Okay, are you sharing?
I find, yeah. Can you see me?
All right. Yes,
can
yes. Yeah, we can see the slides.
Oh, great. Yeah. All right. Find this place. All right. Yeah.
Okay, the missing piece.
Yeah. So I share whole thing, please. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Right. Yeah. All right. So first of all, I would like to thank Ruby and the university, Islamic International University, for organizing such a wonderful forum discussion board for all of us from different parts of the world to have opportunity to share these important issues and questions with our colleagues, students, and friends. Also, I'd like to thank our partner university, Jinan University College of Chinese Language and Culture. So please bring back our gratitude and our thanks to all of the colleagues, PhD students, and friends there. I'd also like to thank the organization of the Chinese 500 talents, teachers around the world. They help us to publicize our events every time, and they're interested in participating in this event and other events. Yeah. So last but not least, I like to thank our Bilingualism Research Lab PhD star supervisors such as Bruno Di Piazza and Professor Satomi Kawaguchi and others. So they have contributed throughout 20 years of cultivating, growing our students and PhD and produced more than 20, 30 PhD students around the world. And we also having in the lab, the PhD students. I like to thank all of them. And our teachers such as Gu Fang and others. And they've been, and Li Xin, and Qiang, and Ying, Yan Qi, Ru Yang, Isa Rina, and also others. So they have collected the data over years of hardship, hard work for many years, and with different combinations of languages. Yeah, and looked at, and also Wanhua, yeah, looked at more than 20 individual participants, like students growing up to become adults, yeah, and adolescents and adults. So we also have a PhD student doing adults work, yeah, and such as Jenny and others, yeah. So I really feel fortunate to be with this wonderful team of work together. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about the missing puzzle. Well, Professor Bruno Di Biase has given us. This is a more than 30 years of puzzle, and nobody has ever looked at this puzzle seriously. We just happen to piece up this piece of puzzle, and I would like to share with you. So we actually propose, because we found this puzzle, we want to share this proposal, this approach, new approach. The new approach is about the role of environmental language, L epsilon. So the L epsilon actually invented by Professor Bruno Di Biase is wonderful invention. I'm really thankful for his ingenious mind. Yeah. So we actually, if we propose like this, if the environments are separated and equal status in terms of strength of input, children learn structural rules of different languages quite independently and associate them strongly to different social settings. Yeah. Secondly, and we find, and the rules of language use are not separated from the environmental context. So the strength of association of grammatical rule with the context outweighs any possibility of interference. We call this independent socially situated indexing. I explain with a story and a case study, yeah, in the following talk. So this is the 11 cases we have studied, examined over 2 years, not just in one day. Yeah. This study being done in the past 40 years about WH questions in bilingual children's development. I didn't go into detail about each of study because Bruno has already shared with us. So I would like to draw your attention to the last case, that is the Mandarin English bilingual children's development in Australian context. So we look at it, perhaps if we look carefully, we would see this child acquired Mandarin at home. The home language is Mandarin because it's an immigrant family. And outside the home, the predominant language is English. Yeah, and we actually find out in the beginning of his study from the birth to 4 years old, and his Mandarin is the dominant language of his own 2 languages. So English is the weaker language. That means he can only produce like two words English, while the Mandarin can be produced in multi-sentences stage. So that is the give you some tangible idea of how weak the English is, right? That is age, the age 2, age 3. Yeah, but however, the environmental English, while the child lives in, is English. So the environmental English actually equals to his weak language, that is English. So if we see English equals the child's weak language, then we will find a miracle here. So what is the miracle? That is the child, even though the English is weak, and his English still developed similar like the monolingual child of English speakers, monolingual child, yeah. So let's have a look in detail.
Dr. Ring, I just want more clarification about that, about your study. So you're saying that the child in Australia, we're talking about Australian context where English is, we would naturally regard English as the majority language, right?
Yeah, the
but this child is raised in Mandarin and English from birth. And then it's just interestingly, even though the environment is English dominant, but the child weaker language is English instead of Mandarin being used at home. I mean, as someone who
yeah, that's a good question. This happened in many of immigrant families. I will tell you in detail. Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, that's the child grew up at home in the first 2.5 years. He stayed home, go to child care center, being cared the grandparents.
The grandparents, okay.
Yes, so that's the normal caring situation in the immigrant family outside the home country. Yeah, so he get exposure to the home language most of the time, like 5 hours of Chinese at home, but only 1 or 2 hours English exposure outside home, or even with limited context within.
Limited context, yeah.
Yeah, that's why we talk about, we bring in the environment, the context, the input into this picture of childhood bilingual development.
Yeah, true, you're right. Because
can I just say a little bit more? Because as Bruno has already said, parents and researchers over the last, because bilingual research has lasted for 100 years. Yeah, so only in 1980s, and researchers realized that there are some new findings there. And the new answers we need to give to parents, like research-based findings we need to give parents and educators. And we, the lab, also follow up on that line of research. So
Dr. Ring, someone, I think participants saying that your table is not clear. Can you zoom in further?
Zoom in.
No, the participants are asking that your table is not clear. Can you zoom in further to make it clearer?
To make it bigger. Yeah. I see whether I can do that trick. So maybe I go back to.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know why.
Maybe you shouldn't present, but just
here.
Yeah.
And so why it's not zooming? Oh no. Still not going bigger, right? So just to give me a second, and I've been asking help.
She's going to the sea to ask for help.
I don't think it can be zoomed. I think she could just go on.
I think she just, no need to present it. Just
no, we will just give you the,
right.
So anybody who wants it later, you can send it to them.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay. So yeah, talking about that, it's interesting that because generally people would regard, if you go to US, if you go to UK, you would naturally acquire English. But in this case, the child, that's the weaker language.
Right. It's not only this case. It is true also in the Japanese English and Korean English studies in America. Yeah.
So we.
That the dominant is the one at home. Yeah.
All right.
No,
don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay. I think that, yeah, I think that's okay.
把这个片 close 掉，可能就大一些。
来看那些。
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I think what's important is that your study at the end, right? And then you have to explain it.
Yeah. All right. So we just in this limited virtual environment, we try to do our best.
Yeah.
All right. So let's have a look at the next one.
All right.
So I will show you the detail of the child's environment. Oh, is that better? Yeah. So I will show you these details of the child upbringing, the linguistic situation. All right.
Dr. Ruyin, there's one question for you.
Sorry, Ruyin. Yeah.
There's one question for you here.
Take out the you need to go into, not into presenters mode, but just a full screen mode. Otherwise, your writing is too small.
Oh, I see.
Now she's going back to the seat. Dr. Bruno, while waiting for Dr. Ruyin, maybe you can help us. Here there's one question. How long does English stay as the child's weaker language, being in the dominant English culture? So how long would
until he went to school?
Yes,
just to go back,
Yeah.
Now it is like he's being, this about is that better?
Yeah. Well, we don't see it anymore.
Okay. 就是那个 present not pre.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Okay, so those are your children, I assume.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. These are to the participants. I've been following up on their study from when they were born up to 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And now they don't want to speak to me.
Yes, children.
Okay, so this is the situation, linguistic situation. So I just have let you share. That's why you know what's the corresponding situation of context or environment and input, and the child why one language is weaker than another.
Mm-hmm.
So this is because the parents, as Bruno has shared with you, and we also as parents in the beginning are worried about the children's weak language. That's the real issue, because we're worried if the child can only speak Mandarin at home in the first 3 years of his life, and not speaking to just speak limited English, how could he cope English when he goes to child care center? Mm-hmm. And will his English being delayed in developing? Mm-hmm. He goes to the school, and will he has less competitive age when he has his English is so weak? Mm-hmm. That's the concern. And also another thing is, as Bruno has shared with you, is the transfer situation. We the parents also worried whether the child's two languages will fighting among each other, right? And will interfere with each other. And he will produce something is not English and is not Chinese. So it's then he will be. Could be when he speak English with Chinese structure, he mocked by his peers, and in that way he will feel a sense of inferiority or the prejudice among his peers. That would affect his cognitive and interpersonal or social development. That's the concern the parents have. And we actually experience all these concerns because when the child first went to the child care center at 2 years and 8 months, he actually stopped speaking for months. Stopped speaking English, stopped speaking Chinese in the child care center, just kept quiet, didn't speak anything. So the parent, the child care workers got really, really concerned. It's not our case, our family. A lot of our friends' children experience similar situation.
Yeah, I think when my daughter was there as well.
Yeah, got silence and didn't speak anything. And so the child care come back to us and said, "Oh, we really."
Sorry. Oh, there's a question.
Yeah. So the parents got really concerned, and the child care workers coming back to us saying, "You'd better take your children to have a look at therapists and or doctors."
因为现在老师都让他坐在凳子上了，他不让他睡了，他就在那里等家长来。
But I just let you have a look at this. That's why the language and the transfer issues. Yeah. So I have a look. Let you have a look at the input situation of the child when before he went to child care center. From 1 year to 2 years, 8 months, he actually being exposed so that at home he received Mandarin from home. The parents and auntie, also grandma, talk to him in Mandarin at home. And he got English exposure outside home when he went shopping, went to play groups, or having outings. Yeah, but so that's the separation of one language, one environment. Actually, but however, at home he also get opportunity to expose to English in a limited context. What is the limited context? Such as he has 15 minutes watching TV time. Yeah, he could watch TV and he could play. And also in the evening, he has storytelling time with me or with daddy or with auntie for 20 minutes in English. Yeah. And also sometimes he plays some games in. So that's why we say this environment is context bound, one language, one environment approach. Yeah, for this bilingual child's upbringing. However, this is not the single case, and this case of upbringing representing majority of immigrant families, bilingual upbringing in Australia and the rest of the world. Yeah, and so we have a look when before he went to childcare center, he has about 6 hours of input from at home in Mandarin, and only 2 hours English out home, English at outside home and including inside home. But however, this situation changes when he went to childcare center. You can see, and gradually, when he gets to nearly 5 years old, and the input situation just reversed. He has 5 hours each day, yeah, English input, and only 2-3 hours Mandarin input at home, right? Yeah, so you can imagine when his English input increased. So you could see at about 5 years old, his English production would be much more than his Mandarin production, right? That could be the situation, or they're getting to the balanced situation of the two languages production. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. We have a look at his MAU development.
All right.
Yeah, we can see this chart. That's this blue one without red is his English development. Okay. When he is at 2 years and 8 months, that's before his child care experience, his English words production only 2-word stage. But Chinese are already at multi-word and sentences stage.
All right.
But however, when you look at the chart, he getting to nearly 5 years old, these gaps narrowed. So his English and the Chinese language productions are almost at the same level. Yeah. So that's also matching his input or environmental language as input to his 2 languages development, which we already show you. Yeah. All right. So that's why we strongly believe that the robust of input from the extra domestic environment, which we call L epsilon, balances dominance of the intra-home environment, providing 2 structural templates, which the child keeps distinct in their acquisition. Yeah, the environmental language is closely tied down to his 2 languages productive development. Yeah. We look at this child's earlier development from 1 year, 7 months to 4.5, and also we kept it in a weekly diary or weekly audio recordings. Each could be 30 minutes. So actually, we have this hours documented evidence to support our findings.
All right. Okay.
The whole database, and we find out his because we look at the WH questions, formation. So we find his Mandarin's questions emerge at age 2.5, but his English questions emerge quite late, 1 year late. Yeah. So we can see that Mandarin is clearly stronger during this timeline, right, than his English. And also Mandarin's in situ question, like he say Mandarin, 你在干嘛, right? You do what? Yeah, in Mandarin way, but never produced in English way. Yeah, and at very early age, like 2 years and 7 months, it's very target-like. But we look at his English, even though his English developer 1 year later, and once he produced English WH question, he has never produced one single transfer utterances, such as you do what? Yeah, he never produced. He always put WH question fronting in a fronting position. Yeah, and always follow the developmental pathway as monolinguals. So that is very, very interesting, because some studies showing, say, the weak language would incur some transfer from the stronger language. And also the weak language a bit later will be much more influenced by the stronger language, right? So let's have the examples. In the Mandarin, the first utterance is 干嘛, do what? Then second type of utterance is when he can produce sentences like multi-word sentences. He would say 刺猬在干嘛? 刺猬在干嘛? He never produced what is the hedgehogs doing. He always put doing at the last yeah.
Right.
And then he also say 妹妹在哪里? He not just using one WH question. He can use varieties of WH question, always placed in the right place.
Position, yeah. Always in the right position.
Yeah. Right. So that's very interesting. And when we, let's have a look at his English production right from beginning up to 5 years old. Right from look at it from this letter, from bottom up letter, we actually using processability theory, well, and Satomi Kwa Uji innovated. And so we look at the developmental progression, yeah, and hierarchical patterns. So we look at when he first produced predicted WH word at 3.5 years old. He just say one word, what? If you ask him, you got the, why you spill the milk, right? You say, what?
What?
Yeah. And also he wants to know, because you say he likes lolly, just he's lolly boy. You say, I only, this is a lolly I give you. He would ask how much? Yeah, how much? Yeah, okay. And when he can produce sentences in just 1 month after produced English sentences, he immediately put what in front of the sentences. Say what color you have eat, even though he didn't say what color. Yeah, have you eaten, right? I want to say what color of the lolly. Yeah, that's he's a lolly boy. Yeah, what color, what? And then when he produced WH questions later on, you can see it's always putting what in front with various of verbs, various of situations. Yeah. So what do you like? What can I do? What are you doing? Here he can actually invert auxiliaries.
So
yeah,
it's interesting that you have that table, because I think for most parents who try to raise their children bilingually, I think it's just human nature that they want something quick. So you can see even in such a strong English environment, it takes the child at least 1 year to have to be very
target line.
So I think most parents, let's say they went to, let's say they go to UK or where English is predominantly spoken, so they would expect the child to be able to master that language in a matter of like 2 months. So actually, even for children, they have their own struggles. So as you show here, they begin with what, and then slowly they would accumulate their vocabularies until they become sophisticated. So I think for parents, they have to bear in mind that children also have to undergo certain processes to acquire language or languages. All right.
That's a wonderful point. So that also shows you, even so this at 1 year later he produced English. It's not target like.
It's not even target like.
But it's target like as monolingual child. Monolingual children also produce this kind of errors. So this is not like this typical children's developmental path. It's not bilingual children developmental path, but typical every monolingual children development path. It's we can't blame children for producing.
Yes, you cannot blame them.
Non-adult like utterances.
We not like utterances.
Supportive of their development.
I think that they have to develop at their own pace. Right?
At their own pace. So it takes this child and other children like 1 year to get to that.
Yes, to get to that stage.
Adult production.
Right.
Adult production. That's great.
Okay, Dr. Wing, we only have 15 minutes left.
I get to the point, like the role of linguistic environment. In James' country expectation and transfer in situ patterns towards the weak language did not occur. The predominant language, L epsilon, exerts a strong counterbalancing influence to transfer in support of the weak language. And you see the developmental variables, but this is only temporary. Bruno really explained. And where their transfer occurs in other studies, this transfer also only temporary. So in the end, the children will get to the target-like production of their both languages if they have the supportive environment. Don't forget the supportive environment. And so we actually, the conclusion is, if the separate environments afforded equal status in terms of strength of input children can learn structural templates of different languages quite independently and in strong association to different interlocutors and social settings. Transfer is unlikely to occur under such conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting L epsilon environment, even the weak language is not weak, and we will develop like a monolingual pairs. So the take-home message today is environment with robust input is very important, and bilingualism is a double gift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
This presentation actually already published in the journal. My bilingual.
In a very high impact journal that is.
Yeah, have a.
All right. So I just want to add to what did our discussion today with my own research, just simple findings from my own research. So I was in Australia from 2013 up till 2017. So I brought the little one as well. Okay, so for my study, what happened was I recorded her from when she was in Australia, that is when she was 1 year, up till 4 years. And then 4 years, she went back to Malaysia. So I recorded her again when so I have two different environments at that point. So I have one environment in which my daughter was in English dominant environment. And then the other one is in Malaysian dominant or Malay based environment. So I think what we have discussed is true, is that the environment play a fundamental factor because what do I say? The environment itself is not static. It's not stagnant. Yes. It's always transitory. So it's always shifting. So when my daughter was there in Australia, what happened was in terms of plurals, right? In English and Malay. Right? So plural. So in English, how do we pluralize? We put S. There are many cats, many dogs, right? So in Malay, how do we pluralize? It's by doubling the noun. So let's say cat, we say cat, cat, or kucing, kucing, right? So what happened when she was in Australia? There were occurrences in which she would use the S, cats, dogs, books in English, and there's this tiny occurrences, these tiny examples in which she used the S on Malay words as well. So you would say, oh, I need the mainans, oh, mainans toys. So she combined the S to the Malay word, right? So there are some occurrences like that, even though it's not major, so just some minor examples there. So it seems to be that pattern when she was in Australia. But then when she came back, so after 1 year, I think around 8 months to 10 months she was here, I recorded her again. And interestingly, at that point, she did not code switch. So I have two sessions, Malay session and English session. So English session was with me and Malay session was with the dad, all right? So she did not code switch in terms of the vocabulary. So she would speak purely in English, she would speak purely in Malay in each session. But when it comes to plurality, so we showed her picture, okay, tell us this picture in English, what is the plural? So she used the double noun, she used the reduplication, oh, I know this is cat, cat in English. So you see that somehow I don't know, so is that in the findings, I just can conclude that the environmental factors play a role. So in this case, the grammatical structure, she's using the grammatical structure when she was in English environmentally dominant situation, she used the English structure on Malay words. But then when she's transferred to Malay dominant environment, she used the Malay structure of plurality on English words. So yeah, I think environment plays a role. And I think recently we have the quarantine. I wrote just a simple article. We have the quarantine, so we went back to our hometown. So in our hometown, I was the only one speaking English. So the rest of the family members, not only they speak Malay, they're speaking the regional Malay, all right? So what's happening, I noticed in 3 months, being in quarantine, my daughter starts speaking up all this Perakhian dialect. So she speaks it fully, except when she turns to me, then she switched to English. So you're right, this input, even in, it's always shifting, it's always changing. And I noticed with my daughter, I'm not sure about the language loss, but she did not lose English even when the environment is fully in Malay, because I'm still there. So yeah, the environmental factors, I just want to highlight that to add to what we have discussed. The environmental factors actually influence children's acquisition of languages. All right. All right, so do we have any questions before we proceed to the 1 minute PhD thesis? Do we have any questions from the participant? You can, I see, thank you for sharing, all right. If we don't have any question, you can just unmute your mic and ask question. I will just proceed to the 1 minute thesis, yeah? So I'm gonna share the screen now. Let's see, share screen. All right. Okay, so I hope everyone can see this. Okay, can we begin with Isriani Hadini from our PhD candidate from Western Sydney University?
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh yes, clearly.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, so I just now.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Sorry, hide thumbnail video. Okay. All right, Isriani, you may proceed.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ruby, Dr. Bruno, and Dr. Ruinchi. Okay. Okay. Just go through, and then because I just have 1 minute, right?
Oh, yes, you have 1 minute, just one slide.
Okay, my text is that. Oh my God. Okay.
Your time starts now.
Hi, everyone.
No pressure.
All right. My thesis title is about lexical and grammatical development in English in Indonesian kindergarten children. Processability theory and developmentally moderated. Okay. I just want to talk about the situation in Indonesia. English is a foreign language in Indonesia, where there are few opportunities to interact with native speakers of English. And English is a compulsory subject in junior high school, senior high school, as well as in the tertiary level. But there are many preschools and also primary school teach English as part of the curriculum, right? And the kindergarten in my study conducts in EFL programs with a communicative meaning-based method in line with general kindergarten program, which has no detailed linguistic modules, okay? And the teacher use meaning-based program in the classroom. The children learn a lot of lexical items, and also they learn formal-like expression, as well as with a lot of fun activities such as singing and etc., playing games. And the teacher does not teach any grammatical structure, and the teacher only give general feedback, okay? But when I conducted this research, I did a quasi-experimental study, and then I proposed a developmentally moderated focus on form instruction and feedback. This is program. This program takes a proactive approach teaching to just to focus on specific developmentally moderated focus on form, and then with of course with general with the communicative and meaning-based method, and also the teacher only gives feedback, only focus on the forms being focused on, and then disregarding other linguistic errors. For example, for the pronunciation, so the teacher sometimes corrected the pronunciation, but actually this program, we don't have to correct the children's pronunciation. And what happened, the result quite different, of course, between the meaning-based program and also with the DM-Form program. In the meaning-based program, the children just produce single words. Before the baseline result revealed that the children only produce single words and formal expression. But after 3 months, after they received 3 months with the DM-Form program, they were able to produce a lexical plural, because I focus on, my study focused on plural marking on nouns, and then they were able to produce a lexical plural and also phrasal plural agreement. So this research suggests that 3 months with the MFONG instruction is effective in promoting grammatical development. In secondly,
okay, thank you, Sriani. Can we, sorry, Sriani, I have to cut you short. So can we move on to Ilian? Ilian? Is Ilian here?
Yeah, I think so.
I just muted myself. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so you have 1 minute, Ilian, to tell us about your thesis.
Thank you. So my thesis investigates the impact of family language policies and practice on their multilingual children's identification. And I have 2 participant families who have 3 generations interacting daily in Cantonese, Vietnamese, and English. And the environmental input condition is the context-bound one language, one environment. My research shows that children are not only influenced by their family's input, but as we said, the environment is really important, and they are influenced as well by their changing environment, which make them adapt and influence how they identify. For example, one of my participants was only turning 7 when he told me, I'm 50% Australian and 25 of the others, meaning that Chinese and Vietnamese identification got 25% each. However, 1 year later, he said that he was just Australian. This indeed could indicate that identification is also a social response to the increased exposure to the dominant societal environment. So identification is important because it connects children to their family's identity and to the broader community too. So my hope is to make a substantial contribution to understanding the factors that may help parents and children in this rather difficult balancing act. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Ilian. Very interesting. So we'll proceed with Lee Seng. So Lee Seng.
Hi, selamat petang, everyone.
Selamat petang.
Okay, yes, I'm good. Okay, so my thesis title will be Home Language Input and Childcare's Impact on Language Development in 2 Mandarin English bilingual siblings within context-bound one language, one environment condition. So the aim of my study is to investigate the dual language development in 2 bilingual siblings being brought up in Mandarin English bilingual environment in Sydney, Australia. So this kind of bilingual exposure from birth can be categorized as context-bound, one language, one environment input condition. So the current research, my study tried to examine how home language input facilitates the development of English. And it also relates to the age of the subjects where they first started attending the childcare. So the childcare experience are believed to have the impact on the bilingual language acquisition and development in each language before and after the childcare attendance. So meanwhile, I strive to determine whether my firstborn child has a wider overall vocabulary and may excel linguistically and use more of the home language as compared to the second-born child the same age, due to greater amount of input and time given by the parents, even though the second-born child may be exposed earlier to the majority language, which was used at the childcare and preschool. So I really hope that the study will provide information and knowledge for parents, teachers, and educators in the early education field. And the ultimate implication stands to provide support for those migrant families wishing to maintain the future status of minority language and at the same time to ensure the children's formal school success. Thank you for your attention. That's all about my
Thank you, Lizzie. Very interesting. So can we proceed with Xianggu?
Okay. Okay, I just unmute myself.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This project aims to trace the developmental patterns of child's Mandarin and English after moving to Australia with her parents from ages 3.5 to 5.5. The child received Mandarin and English in context-bound one language, one environment input condition, and Mandarin remains the dominant language of the whole study period, indicated by her MLU in each of her languages. The important finding is that after the child moved to Sydney in Australia, the environmental language is English. Her overt subjects in Mandarin seems to appear at an increasing rate, whereas the subject realization in English seems to error-free. In detail, I will give you two general findings. One is the child almost does not drop Mandarin subjects in topic continuity condition, which is pragmatically inappropriate. For example, 我今天去学校，我就和同学玩。When I go to school today, I will play with my classmates. So the second I should be omitted in Mandarin syntax. So she didn't omit it, the second. And the second general finding is the child does not drop subjects even in single conversational term. For example, I ask, 刚才去哪里了? And where did you go? You is omitted by me. And she answered, 我刚才去后院了. I just now went to the backyard. Even if I didn't use the overt subject in my turn, she just fill it up with the overt subject. So contrary to the prediction by dominant theory, because the Mandarin remains the dominant language over the whole study period, the child lessens the one-way influence from English to Mandarin in subject production. It seems that the environmental language, L epsilon English, has played a major role in this developmental pattern. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Shanggu. So we'll proceed with Ru Yuan. Ru Yuan Wang.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I'll talk about one of the tasks about my study. And yeah, we recruited two groups of Chinese native students of master degree majored in interpreting and translation. And but the two groups have different language contexts. One group has sustained study abroad experience in the second language dominant environment for on average like 2 years, and the other group has never been to an English-speaking country. And the task we administer to them is the word translation recognition task from their first language to the second language, Chinese to English, and the other way around. And the results we found is that the study abroad group, they exhibited much balanced and consistent word translation recognition in two directions. But the non-study abroad group, they demonstrated significantly larger asymmetry in their two directions of word translation. And the explanation we provided for this result is that for bilinguals, the linguistic elements in both languages are co-activated, and they are trying to the selection of the language is achieved by inhibition of the unintended but co-activated language. So for those in the study abroad group, their environment they help them to inhibit their first language, the dominant language, and contribute to their second language processing. Thus come to the more balanced and consistent result. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So the last one, we have Ying Liu from Xiamen University. Ying Liu? Ying Liu, are you there?
Maybe she needs to unmute.
Okay.
Maybe she's there, but maybe some connection problem.
Oh, all right. So
some connection, yeah, because the sound maybe not being connected.
let me just see.
Yeah. Have you got any, Bruna? Have you got any info? Yeah.
Run Liu, right? No, is it?
No, not Ying Liu.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's Ying. It's Ying.
Let me just. I have to.
So let me try.
Is she there?
Let me try to find.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Ying Liu, is she here? All right. She's not here.
Okay, maybe I can tell you.
Okay.
No, just wait.
Ruing is calling.
She said she's talking, but why we can't hear her?
Oh, can you unmute yourself? Wait, let me just.
Maybe she's.
Yeah, can she use my phone? Just talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you all?
You hear me?
Okay, yes. What happened?
Oh, okay. That's really cool. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to share my study in this webinar. So in my study, Chinese-English bilinguals showed difference in realizing subjects from monolingual Chinese. Bilinguals were found to drop significantly fewer subjects than monolinguals. Typologically speaking, co-referential subjects are often dropped in Chinese, but must be overtly expressed in English in most situations. So we contribute bilinguals' preference for overt subjects over noun subjects in their L1 Chinese to the influence of their L2 English. In fact, L2 effects on L1 subject realization have been frequently reported in studies of immigrant population, where L2 is the language of environment. Results from my study seem to suggest that even in an L1 dominant environment, such L2 effect also exists. We therefore argue that frequent use of two languages might reshape the bilingual's mind and behavior, regardless of the societal language environment. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so very interesting. I'm gonna stop sharing now. All right. So, do we have any more questions? Because it's now 12:35, so we're supposed to end the session already. But I find this session very enlightening. Next time, you have given me a good idea, but my students have to present. Now my students running away. You have given me, okay. Now next time, our students from this university will present what they are researching about. All right. Okay. Participants, do you have any question? No? All right, so I hope this session is beneficial. I certainly find it very enlightening, especially from Dr. Ru Ying and also from Dr. Bruno, the illuminated one, right? All right, so if we don't have any question, I think that's all for today. We have 1.5 hours, very good, fruitful, very informative session. And I certainly hope the students, my students who are taking psycholinguistics this semester, they would benefit from this session. Okay? Good. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I certainly will organize this in future.
Hope we'll do some more of this.
Thank all the participants, and all our lab students and your students and colleagues.
I think my students will be next round. It's them.
That's right.
By the way, Fatin, my RA, has created this feedback form. If you can see it, Fatin, can you put it at the group chat again? Yes. So just for us, anything that you think might be we should improve in future. Where is it? Fatin, can you put it again down there? Group chat. Okay. Fatin put it there, but it's already up. Okay. Wait. Where's my RE? Rizman, who's okay? Kindly fill in the feedback form. So the minions have helped me do that. So if you think, yeah, we would value your feedback. So next time, what can we do to improve the session?
Good.
Okay. Right.
Thank
so,
you.
So if you cannot access that, let me know. So I will ask the minions to email you. Not me, the minions. Me. The minions will help email you. All right.
Not the mean ions.
The minions. All right.
Okay. All right.
So
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ring. Thank you so
you.
much, all the PhD students. All the best for your research.
Good.
Thank you, Dr. Bruno. Oh yeah,
Thank
how
you
to
to
connect you? Let's see. My email is, sorry, I forgot that. At view.my. Okay, so that's my email. Okay, so if you have, let's say you don't want to fill in that form, you can just email me. All right. So I hope to see you guys maybe next round with our Malaysian students, what they are doing here, so that they still be, what do you call, Dr. Bruno always do that when I was a PhD student. You always keep me on my toes. Okay, I have to present.
Okay.
So now I'm learning from you to keep them. Yeah.
Keep them on their toes too.
Yes, like always be careful.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. That's one.